tell you what.
All right, everyone, what's going on? Welcome to episode 9 of the Chondro Lounge. And Chuck, I'm really excited for this one. We have the mayor of Chondro Town, one of the goats in the Texas breeding. Texas is just home of a bunch of amazing chondro breeders, and I feel like getting the title of the mayor of Chondro Town is big. But we got Bill Stegall on tonight, man.
Yeah, he's a good dude, and I don't know how he does it, man.
I can imagine it's a lot.
Yeah.
I remember having a conversation with him after his last season. I think he had 7 clutches go, and he was kind of on the back burner and on the fence of like having another big season. And then I think for this upcoming year, I'm interested to find out how many pairings went, but I think he did more pairings. And I love when he pumps out stuff. For those of you that are tuning in from either the Retake Lounge side, and you're tuning in here, for those that are newer to chondros and you're listening in, Bill Stegall is really known for his melanistic line stuff that all stems from Jaeger and the most infamous offspring, I think, that he's created, which is the sickness. If you guys go on Google and type in the sickness chondro or green tree python, you'll see one of the most wild chondros that's ever been produced. And it's just crazy how like that one animal and having that one male who's already so old but just continuing to sire clutches can really just make a path of great success in the chondro world. And we're going to rip all that apart and talk to Bill about all that.
Yeah, it should be a good episode.
So I do want to hint at a little sneak peek for everybody. We are putting together the ad for it, but the Reptile Lounge Network, not just the Chondro Lounge, not just the Retake Lounge, the Reptile Lounge Network is going to be getting a new sponsor. And I'll share who that is. That's Cold Blooded Cafe. I was able to speak to Chris and had a good conversation with him. We got a code ready in the works. I just got to do my end, get some video editing and create an ad for him so that we can go ahead and start pumping that out. And it's going to come with an awesome 20% discount code for everybody who uses it through the Reptile Lounge Network. So shout out to Cold Blooded Cafe for trusting the Reptile Lounge Network and our ability to kind of just grow, expand, and get people to, be able to buy rodents that we all need for our snakes with a nice discount code. So again, thanks Cold Blooded Cafe. But Chuck, let's go ahead and get Bill on.
Yeah, let's do it.
Whether you've poured your heart and soul into your reptile business or you've just begun your business journey, AE Foundry has you covered with next-level expertise in graphic design, motion graphics, videography, photography, and so much more. If you've been dying for a new logo for your reptile business, motion graphics for your current logo, a new website, or need assistance making your video podcast come to life, then listen carefully. AE Foundry's mission places storytelling at its core. AE Foundry believes that a distinctive story and background are the driving forces that set your brand apart. In today's market, consumers seek more than just products. They crave a connection built on trust with the brands they cherish. AE Foundry is committed to empowering small businesses and fostering authenticity that resonates with their consumers. Reach out to them and let them help you craft a visual narrative that helps establish a genuine and lasting connection with your audience. To contact AE Foundry, email them at aromero@aefoundry.com or on Instagram at AE Foundry. Mayor.
Evening, guys.
What's going on, man?
Hey, thank you for the very humbling introduction. You throw around terms like the GOAT, and I certainly don't think that applies to me. I think that applies to more to like people a generation or two ahead of me, like my good friend Buddy Buscemi, who I don't know if you saw any my social media posts, was in town, a rare Texas visit this last weekend, and I got to hang out with him and and his family. His son goes to college just less than an hour north of me. So he's in town once or twice a year. He's getting his son settled in. So we got to spend some quality time with him. And well, thank you for the introduction. And, the three of us have been friends for a long time now, it seems.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy to be on the show and hang out and spend a little time talking chondros with you guys.
Yeah. I know you do it weekly now on the Trap Talk Network. Shout out to MJ for hosting Up in the Trees Tuesdays and for having amazing people on like you and Marshall and having such an awesome lineup of guests. You guys have done a phenomenal job with that. I get tied up with the baby life and the wife life, and I used to be able to catch them live frequently, but I got to wait a couple days because, MJ kind of slacks sometimes about getting them on Spotify, but once they're on Spotify, I listen to them that same day. And, you guys are doing an awesome job with that show.
Well, MJ podcasts 7 nights a week.
It's insane.
It drives me stir crazy to go one night a week. And in fact, we talked and we've had this arranged for probably a couple of months now because I needed a Tuesday night off so I could do, work with you guys on a Monday. So I didn't have to do 2 podcasts in the same week because it's
a lot, man.
It's a lot. I enjoy it, but I enjoy getting drunk at my party too, but I don't want to do it more than once a week.
If you don't mind me asking, Bill, I kind of want to know. So, Buddy Bush, like getting the opportunity to sit down and to talk with it from my perspective, that's like that's like sitting down and talking to Michael Jordan of chondros, right? And you've known him for a while. You've talked to him a bunch of times. You've seen him a bunch, but I'm curious. Is there still a little bit of that, like, damn, Buddy's over?
Not so much anymore because we're really just such good friends. I mean, and to be honest, I spent 3 or 4 hours with him and we talked very little about chondros, to be honest.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was more just life stuff and family stuff. And so not him in particular. I'm sure if there were other people, a generation ahead of me that I was in the room with for 3 or 4 hours, I would be more starstruck, but not with Buddy.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. To be able to develop a friendship like that is awesome. There's a few people in the community that I can say that when we talk, it's not about snakes anymore. Right.
Right.
And that's a good thing because life is more than snakes. Right.
I was talking before the show. I'm in a little chat with Gary, MJ, Marshall, and Ryan Young. And we were talking about, because I've been starting literally today, started planning the party that's going to be here on September 6th. And I know both you guys are going to be here. And obviously it's an open party. Anybody that's listening to the show or anybody that wants to attend the party is welcome to come if they're going to be in town for the Dallas NARBC. All they have to do is message me and tell me they're going to show up. I need a head count for food. But we're messaging all of us from the 3 currently active podcasts, chondro podcasts. Everybody's going to be there.
Awesome.
So you guys, that's Marshall, MJ, myself, Travis, and Keno. We'll all be there.
Nice.
So
nice.
That'll be pretty cool. I think we need to get a picture.
Yeah, no, that would be great.
Yeah.
I think that, and it's even cool to just say that there's, only 3 when you realize how big the chondro community is growing and how many more people are being driven to it. And it's not like it's a responsibility to the chondro community, but I think it's good to put the content out there. To have all 3 podcast platforms on chondros being there, that's actually pretty cool.
I think so too. I don't know, man, maybe you guys know, is the Chondro Cast still an active chondro platform? Justin's?
So we were just talking about it. I think last episode or the episode before. It's not. They brought it back and then they only brought Chondro Boz on from Australia.
Okay.
And I think that's it, right, Lucas?
That was
Sorry
the
to
only.
interrupt you.
Yeah, that was okay. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah, they had that one great episode. They had someone from Australia on, and they talked about chondros in Australia, a bunch of other things. It was a great episode, but that's kind of where that started and stopped. And I don't know. I'm hopeful that hopefully they put some more stuff out.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a good podcast.
Yeah, the more the merrier, the more the better, which is typical of our community, right? Most other communities would be like, "Oh, last thing we need is another ball python," podcast. Well, not us, man.
Right.
And Lucas, when you were thinking about doing this, in fact, you contacted me. I think we talked a little bit about, well, am I overdoing it if we start this podcast? I'm like, no way, man. Just the tip of the iceberg.
Right. I mean, coming from me and being a retic guy, and again, having the passion for chondros, being scared to jump into it, my first thought was like, I don't want to step on toes. I don't want to get people upset that this guy who's, a retic guy who has only one chondro at the time is, going to start a podcast. Who's this kid, right? To want to do this. And, I think it was actually on the Retic Lounge episode where you talked about the GTP Keeper radio podcast. And you it's a message that's been imprinted in my brain, and I've spread that message to other people that I've wanted to start podcasts on species they like. And you said if you want to learn about a species really fast and you want to soak in as much information as you can, start a podcast. And I was like, right. That's genius.
You guys are me just 13 years ago. That's it. This is what I was doing 13 years ago, and I was nervous as hell about it. Luckily I had Buddy there, to take me under his wing and drive it, drive the show, so to speak. But yeah, you don't think I was nervous 13 years ago? When we started the podcast, I'd owned 2 chondros for maybe 2 years or something, or a year, just like you, Lucas. Chuck's got a little more time under his belt, but I was about where you were, when GTP Keeper Radio started.
Yeah. And I appreciate having Chuck, who's, a few years ahead of me, because it's one thing that where I get to sit and I get to talk to you, and, it's like a lesson from the wise, right? But it's another thing to see Chuck doing it new, but being successful with what he's doing, and the feedback and the information that he gives me. And I tell Chuck all the time, he's got a unique perspective because he works with imports, and he's in a little town where he doesn't have access to great veterinary care. And so Chuck is doing the full damn thing over there.
Yeah. I mean, again, something along the lines that's completely different from my experience.
Right.
I think I have 2 animals that would be considered imports in my collection, and both of them were very, very well established. Well, I take that back. One of them was very well established before I even got it, and the other one was just a super breeze to get established. So I haven't come across near the issues and challenges that Chuck has come across.
Yeah, Chuck, I'm sure can speak volumes on that.
Yeah, I'll actually touch on what we do a follow-up. That female that had the permethrin poisoning has made a full recovery, perched up the following day. Yeah, I took some pretty disturbing videos. It's pretty crazy what it does.
Yeah.
To their central nervous system.
For sure. I'm kind of surprised it was reversible, yeah,
hydration, changing the water. Before I go any further, is that return vent really, really loud? Do I have to block that real quick? Can you
I don't hear anything.
Okay.
I don't hear anything.
It kicked on in the middle of you guys talking. Anyway, but yeah, it's it was definitely a learning experience. Patrick helped me through it. So I'm happy that she's not dead.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. It's like, so your mentors are going to be different than maybe Lucas's mentors, in the chondro game, right?
Right. Because you're talking about, wild caught stuff and all. I mean, yeah, Patrick would be the go-to guy in the short list of people that I talk and I bug. Patrick would be that go-to guy for the wild caught stuff question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Patrick for the imports, but I'll tell you what, Ryan Young has really helped me out as well.
Of course, yeah.
Imports.
Yeah, you can, if I think about 2 people with experience dealing with import establishment and import problems, those are the two guys that come to my mind, right off the bat.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Bill, if you don't mind, I wanted to, so we were talking about the podcast, the Chondro podcast, people being at your place. And, one thing that I think, was a passion that you had, talking to you and asking the questions and getting my first chondro from you. One thing that I saw from you that really lit up, was this idea that lit up for me was the idea that, chondros they're not difficult snakes to keep. And now that I have a handful of them, I'm experiencing that. And there's that regret of not jumping back to it earlier. And one thing that you do that I feel that same fire and desire to push is, the idea of like chondros no longer having to be this upper echelon private club. And really you've done again, my circle in the chondro community is small and slowly growing, but if I could really point at an individual that has really taken chondros and has opened up the minds of people to be open to keeping them, without the fears that were associated with them, back in the day or even still recently, it's you. So if you're okay, I kind of just want you to speak a little on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was the number one reason that Buddy and I wanted to start GT Keeper Radio, was to dispel the common myths and misconceptions about green tree pythons. And a couple of them were that they were uber defensive, non-handleable, die easily, disease prone, that they were a upper echelon, not even intermediate keeping, but the most advanced keeping reptile on the planet. And Buddy knew that was not the case. And he taught me that was not the case, him and some other people, as long as you followed a few very simple guidelines. Now, Chuck's probably laughing to himself because, you haven't seen some of the, animals that I've come across, because they were probably all of that. But the captive-bred stuff, and I say it all the time, my little mantra is get the right animal from the right person and put it in the right box, and you're going to have a very high likelihood of success and enjoyment with green tree pythons.
Right.
And, it just is not, for over a decade now, it's just, I've just proven my point, many times over. So
to touch on that, Bill, I mean, they're very easy to keep, but not to breed.
Oh yeah. That's part B of my mantra.
Right. That's part B.
And the other thing is, I always post videos, kind of just supporting basically the stand you took, that they are not evil. And I always quote that in all those videos with my children holding them and stuff like that, because they just aren't.
Yeah. I mean, the first ones that I was introduced to, I was kind of like Lucas. I kick myself now for not getting involved with them a decade earlier. But all the ones that I was introduced to, whether it was expos or I had a friend that had one, they were everything that people said they were,
Right.
But I didn't know at the time that those were imported Biocs, and they come with their own set of challenges and rewards. But they're certainly different than a captive-bred animal.
Yeah.
They're just different. And at the time, 10, 12, 13 years ago, captive-bred animals didn't seem like they were as accessible to people. But then I talked to people like Marshall, that Mendez was around before me. He sent me a video of he and Rico vending at Daytona, the Chondro Coalition, and you would have thought it was a freaking ball python booth. The number of green trees that were at this table, at this end cap. It wasn't a table, it was a freaking end cap. And it seemed to go on and on and on. So I guess they were readily available pre-Bill Stegall, but it seemed like when I was getting into it, they weren't.
Yeah.
So,
I think that the therapist in me likes to think in dialects, right? On like, there's one side of things and there's always another side of thing. And because I have long-term captive importaroos, and then I just got not too long ago, I got a Biak import from Dan, who's in phenomenal health. But you get adults that you don't grow with, and they're imports, right? You can see the side of the animal that doesn't want anything to do with you, right? You get a fresh import Biak that's in your home 2 months after being off the ship. You're going to see an animal that does not like you. And so, but on the flip side, every captive hatch animal that I have in my collection, even my F1 Biaks from Patrick, are all handleable. Even yours, Bill. I remember being at your house, and when I ended up choosing that other animal, 2301, who is incredible, by the way. I remember all the other animals in that clutch. People were taking off and like were handling them, and they were chilling. I remember that one specifically, 2301. When I got it off the perch, just started flailing, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to touch it, not going to handle it. I brought it to my house and never tried handling it. Just literally cleaned, had it on the perch. And eventually one day, I had it in one hand as I was changing the paper towel, and I felt it on my hand, and it just started coming right up to me. And now I can literally take that snake off the perch in 2 seconds. I can handle it. My daughter can pet it along the back. It's the most chill, confident snake. As a baby, just didn't want to be messed with, but now it's like handling any stereotypic non-bitey animal.
Yeah.
And by the way, that snake, 2301, never struck at me. Didn't want to be held, but never struck at me. So yeah, it goes to show that the message that you're showing about captive bred animals, I have yet to have an example in my collection where that is not the case. And I have 5 now that are captive hatch.
I've got a few more than you do, and I don't have a single one, not a single one that I can't pull out and handle.
You said a few.
So, and you don't have any Biaks, do you, Bill?
No, the only long-term, the only imported animals.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
The only two locality type animals I have are an adult manicory female that I got as a baby from Bushmaster, and then I got a Kofiau locality type male from Patrick about 2 years ago. And even those are docile animals. But those are the only two locality type animals or long-term imports that I have in my collection.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Bill, you want to know something about Scarface?
Yeah.
My manicory male, that one with that real crazy electric blue down the back, when I reached out to Pat to buy a Neo that was already sold, he showed me Scarface and the manicory, and I picked my male manicory.
Is that right?
And Pat and Pat was like, I think it's a Kofi out. And I'm like, man, I got to go with the blue. I got to pass on it.
I think it was a good decision for both of us.
Yeah.
It's worked out. I've gotten. Well, how many clutches have you gotten out of Scarface? I've had 2 out of my manicory.
Just one. I bred him 1 year, and he produced the year that I bred him.
But he went with a sickness daughter or sickness granddaughter?
He went with a sickness sibling, female, named Epidemic.
Even better.
Yeah. They're a crazy contrast, obviously. She's red dominant, so I got 16. It was the most perfect clutch maybe I think I've ever hatched size-wise. 16 eggs, all fertile, 16 babies hatched, 16 babies ate on the first meal, and they were all red. So,
wow.
That's
going to be neat to see the Kofi out blood and the red Neo.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's going to be very well. The Kofiau blood and a sickness sibling. That
Yeah.
Going to be, I think, pretty unique.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The thing I love.
Think of a locality the furthest from black.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
All light features. That's neat. It's exciting. Sorry, Lucas.
No, that's okay. Does that Kofiau have like faded yellow diamonds along the back?
It's got a real bright yellow undertone.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
It's a green snake, but you look at it and go, it looks really yellow underneath the green paint job.
Right.
It's way to describe it.
Yeah, it's kind of like how a lot of those blue animals are, right? It's like it's green on the surface, but you see the teal undertone.
Exactly. That's exactly how this is, but green, yellow on the green undertone. Yeah.
I'm interested to see how those develop. My thing has been yellow diamonds, and that's kind of the direction I'm going with the designer stuff and wanting to really focus and enhance and try to make adults that have those yellow diamonds just popping. And I think
you got a good start with your animal then.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, and that's what I was going to say, you take a Kofiau, right? And even the yellow undertone, and you take it to a sickness line animal or an animal from Jaeger that's known for holding the yellow diamonds. And I think that I'm really interested to see how those animals grow. Yeah.
It's probably the most, I would say, craziest clutch phenotypically that I've ever done. Like two parents, that are so opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. That's exciting. And that's what's cool about the designer game is getting to play a little bit of checkers and chess and just see what works.
You bet. That's why I love it. That's probably the number one thing I like about it. Just a kind of a Dr. Frankenstein,
right.
Just
it's an experiment.
In different parts, and you never know what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's, it's interesting that just like talking about that is a thing driving me and fueling me to do this, because you could take and everyone knows I'm a massive locality person. You see it in my retics, you see it in some of the other species that I'm getting, and even in the chondros I plan to expand on the locality stuff. But even with like the retics, you can take you could take morphs, right? Like and you know what you're gonna get. In the chondro world, there's something really cool about the unknown.
Yeah. Well, even in locality chondros, you mostly know what you're going to get.
Exactly.
You can get some extreme amount of blues, or you can get extreme amount of coloration or white, high white or whatever, but you basically know what you're going to get. The stuff that I'm messing around with, a sickness will pop out.
Right.
Like who had no business popping out of the parents that he came from.
Right.
That's what I like. That's what drives me.
So how many pairings did you do this season?
It's interesting in your introduction. So last year, 2 years ago, it'll be 3 seasons ago, I paired 4 females and got 4 clutches. The year after that, I paired 5 females here and got 5 clutches. And Buddy paired my male that he has up there with a female and got a clutch. So 6 clutches. This year I paired 10 females and got 3 clutches.
Oh shit.
That's how it works.
That's how it works. I wasn't surprised one bit. I knew my time was coming to have a little. Not only did I pair 10, I had 10 females lock multiple times. So yeah, I had 10 females lock and ended up with 3 clutches and just shy of 30 babies. So
that's
where it goes,
That's interesting with chondros, man, that you see the locks and it doesn't, there's not even, dried dead fruit, right? Like sometimes the locking happens and it's nothing. It's not a single clutch.
No slugs, no egg bound, just
that's
lock after lock after lock after lock after lock. And I had females that locked 20 plus times.
Man, that is so foreign from what I'm used to.
Yeah.
At what point do you give up?
I've got a pretty good trigger for giving up. I mean, I like a pretty tight breeding window for the most part. If I cycle and they're breeding and it comes for the most part, it comes April, and female's still eating, then I'm pretty much done. Now I do have the luxury of having ultrasound. So these females, that I'm kind of coming to the end of the season, I'll slap an ultrasound on them, make sure that they don't have like moderate sized follicles. Most of these females I ultrasound and just pea-sized follicles after breeding all winter. Mm-hmm. So they're done. So
yeah, you do run a tight ship there. You got the light cycling, you got the temperature drops that you play outside, and it's you got it down to a science, which I can appreciate the hell out of.
Well, yeah, it showed me how well my science worked this year. I thought
sometimes they just don't want to do it, I guess.
Sometimes they don't. And, I'm breeding not a lot, but at least half of these females were 4-year-old first timers, which I consider moderate risk. I mean, I think they really do best when they're 5. But I had Biscuit Jaeger. I bred that bitch, who've produced 4 clutches for me, that pair, over the years. I gave her the year off last year. They locked up multiple times, just like clockwork, and nothing.
She's going to be stubborn now.
Yeah. That's what I get for being being kind and giving her a year off.
That's what happened to me. I gave one of my female retics a year off after 3, and then that next year I went to go breed her. She didn't go. I was like, "Don't do this to me!" Like,
telling you, I had already penciled her in. I had the incubator box ready with her name on it and everything, and she just totally snubbed me.
Oh man, unpredictability. It's fun, man. Speaking of fun, I kind of want to ask just a random question, but you've been doing this for a while now. You've had a lot of seasons. You've had great seasons, and you've had seasons like this where 30% rate, right? And I'm curious, through it all, through the seasons, what is it that like keeps you going? What is it about these that like really, because you breed short tails, you breed ball pythons. What else are you working with that you're producing animals from?
Well, I've bred and have here rough scale pythons as well, carpet pythons.
That asshole that bit me, man. I'm holding her again.
It's a him.
It's a him.
I'll talk to him about it, and we'll let you know.
I need to make friends with him. I didn't like.
What got bit? You got bit by the Carpondro?
No, not the Carpondro. No, and that's the funny part is everyone gets bit by the Carpondro, and that night the Carpondro didn't bite anyone, but I had a zebra jungle jag freaking rock me.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a little bite. It was, I think I'll be eating you.
Yeah, it was a bite wrap, and he liked to twist on my pinky a little bit. It was fun.
Bill, how's that 75% Carpondro doing?
Boy, that thing died probably years ago.
I'm sorry. No. The one you just got.
Oh, the baby. Oh, it's doing badass.
God, I was like, damn. I was like, I didn't even know.
No, it's doing badass. You're gonna love it when you see this thing, man.
Is it in with the collection now?
Oh yeah, went through nido tests and quarantine, and it's in with the regular collection, and it is bad.
I can't wait, man.
Are you gonna take an attempt at 80? What is it? 87.5%?
I've done that, man. It's broken my heart too many times. I've tried to produce 75%ers. I've tried to produce the what would have been, whatever they are, 86%ers. And yeah, I gave up on producing Carpondros a long time ago. I bred a 75% Carpondro male to a 50% Carpondro female. I bred him to a pure green tree female. And I've given up on that heartbreaker.
Justin Wilbanks, before he passed, he had a crazy looking 75% Carpondro, and I really wonder what happened to that animal.
I had 4 at one point in my collection. I didn't produce them, of course, but I ended up with them. I got 4 as adults. I thought that was the one that you were asking about because I ended up with one. They were very old. I ended up selling 2. I kept 2. I had them for a long, long time. They were phenomenal animals. They all look so different. One was black and yellow. One was high blue. One was green. The other one was yellow. They're siblings.
That's
cool.
awesome. Dude, I can imagine right now, we talk about, designers, and now we're talking about crosses. Ryan Young's ears got to be burning right now. He just woke up from a dead sleep as like, who's talking?
Dude, he's used to it. Are you kidding me?
Him and Gary are out front of the Chondro Lounge headquarters with picket signs.
There's a reason they're not coming to my party, and it's because I got the Carpondro here.
Oh, Ryan's not coming?
You know what? I talked to him literally an hour before we started, and he's like, I've kind of been telling him like who else coming, and I think he's going to have a change of heart, and I think he's going to come. He's been here before. He was here
last September. Yeah.
He was here last September. That's when I met him.
Yeah. Yep. So hopefully he'll come. Hopefully he'll come again this September.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be awesome. Back to the question. What is it about the chondros that really just gets it going for you as far as breeding goes? Because we know that there's a lot of heartbreak. We know that there's a lot of, you got to dig deep, especially when you have several clutches. And I guess if you could hone it into one or two things that just keeps you going, what is it?
I think probably the number one thing is just the challenge. I mean, there has not been a species that has challenged me. And granted, I've worked in a very small universe. I'm kind of the anti Ryan Young. He's bred. He's probably produced. I think he has produced now documented more snake species, or maybe snake species, probably than anybody else in the world. I'm the opposite of that. Only bred a handful of species, but these things are very challenging to breed. Egg incubation, neo establishment, problems with neos, all of that stuff that I bitch about, but it's really probably the number one thing that brings me back to them, is because it's so satisfying when everything goes right and all the chains get linked, and finally you got that neo that's taking its 15th meal. Or even now I'm to the point where I see my animals that I produce that are reproducing. That is just such I take very few proud moments, in my reptile keeping. But when you produce an animal or a green tree that reproduces for the first time, you're like, man, that's pretty freaking awesome. Or somebody else has an animal of mine that I produced and it reproduces for them.
Oh, that's got to be a great feeling.
Yeah.
It's just a really good feeling. And the good feelings that I get with green trees are more elevating than the bad feelings I get, because we all get those too.
Well, I was going to say, you kind of have like a cynical skeptic mindset like I do when it comes to breeding, and it's never a done deal until, I don't know, they're adults, right? And I'm curious, is there ever part of you that you do love the challenge, but is there ever a part of you in the back of your mind that thinks maybe this year it's going to be easier?
Yeah, kind of.
You stay hopeful.
When Jaeger Biscuit didn't go, I was like, man, that's a real kick in the head right there.
You're right in the nuts. They don't even have legs and they kick you in the nuts.
Yeah. I mean, just stuff like that happens. The other stuff, babies dying, baby prolapses, eggs going bad. I just open up the incubator or the tub and go, well, it is what it is. This is what chondros do. But I still get kicked in the nuts sometimes. And,
I bet,
I shake my head to have, only 3 females go this year when I had 10 females locked. That was a bit of a head shaker. I try to think, I tell people 50% is a good, good number to, really, breeding chondros is a numbers game. The more females you breed, the more likelihood you're going to get viable eggs. And then the more likelihood viable eggs, you're going to get viable neos. But to have 2 years where I went 100%, and then this year breeding the most females I ever have to produce
30
is,
30%,
small number of babies, I'm not bitter about it or angry. It just is a head shaker. And it's why I keep coming back. It's why I just can't let it go.
It's like a drug.
It is like a drug.
Yeah.
I bet. I hear MJ say that a lot, and it makes sense because you guys talk a whole bunch. But he says it's, I've heard him say it's a, it's a numbers game. The more that you pair, the more likely you're going to have success. And, those infancy years when you only got 1 or 2 females pairing, yep. For a lot of people, I bet it's a make or break scenario. You have only 1 or 2 females good to go. And, if you go 2-3 seasons with nothing, I can imagine so many people are probably throwing in the towel and saying, yeah, these things are just too hard to breed.
It gets very frustrating. I mean, you can imagine, like you said, you have the female, she doesn't go. Okay. She doesn't go. Even worse, she goes and she lays slugs. I mean, you talk about a kick in the nuts. You got one female, that you've raised up for 4 or 5 years, and you finally get her to size and she breeds, and then she lays a pile of slugs. I mean, that hurts, man.
Yeah. And breeding green tree pythons is like being at the gym, right? You look to the guy lefty and you wish you looked like him, but then you look over to your right and there's a guy looking at you, wishes he looked like you. And I think everyone listening to this podcast right now is wishing they looked like the guy to the left, Bill Stegall, because like, damn, I wish I could say I got a head shaker and I only produced 30 green tree pythons this year.
Dude, I've said it before, man. I've paid my dues.
You have.
I've paid my dues, and most people that have been in it as long as I have been, just consistent with it, and have been fortunate. I got very lucky because I escaped a lot of NIDO issues that I think a lot of people in my generation and the generation before me did not escape. So I got lucky and was just persistent, and I think the future of chondro breeders now are as solid as they've ever been, probably because we know a lot now. But I think the biggest thing we know now that we didn't know 15 years ago was nidovirus. So I'm optimistic.
And I think that I say it all the time that this is the most progressive species right now in the hobby being kept and bred. And I think that with all the new breeders, I know I've tried new things, and all the new breeders that have, under 3 clutches under their belt have also tried new things. We really are learning new things every day. And you seem to be like, Hank the Tank in the crowd, and you just come with all the young chondro breeders and you're just Hank the Tank, and you're like, I'm gonna try new shit. Let's just start shoving chicken gizzards down their throat. And now everybody's doing it. Yes,
another one.
Yes. But yes, you are Hank the Tank, because you are not stuck in your old ways for being in the generation of chondro breeders that you're in.
Yeah, I mean, some ways I'm stuck in old ways, but other ways, things, frustrate me, and baby prolapse have been one of the things that I've been struck by that. I think more than my fair share, or maybe more than a lot of other people that have produced green trees. And so I've really tried to do some really thinking about what there's certain things we can control with these animals, right? And certain things that we can't. Mm-hmm. And I'm willing to say, okay, I can't control those things, but the things that we can control, I really want to give it like the very best shot. And, prolapse, for example, I think when we rule out the obvious things like humidity and hydration, I think anybody that's producing green trees knows enough to give them fresh water and keep them well hydrated, and humidity, at appropriate levels. I think everybody's doing that. Okay, you do that. So, and they prolapse. Okay, why? Why are they doing it? And what could we potentially do to fix it? And so, I try, when I come across problems like that, then I try to change. I'm always changing. I think every year, I'm tweaking, changing, trying to just do a little bit better. And sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad, to be honest. The enemy of good is better sometimes.
Right.
So,
Oh, Old School's the movie I was thinking about. It sounded like an idiot, but it's Old School.
It's Old School. Hank the Tank.
Yes, yeah. Hank the Tank, Will Ferrell. Yes. I couldn't freaking think of it off the top of my head.
That's classic, epic movie.
Yep.
And I take that as quite a compliment too, just to let you know.
Oh, you're a good time.
I'm heading down to the quad after we finish the episode.
Nice shirt, by the way.
Yeah, I thought you'd appreciate that. I'm a big military and law enforcement supporter. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
This is Chuck's work right here.
Yep, absolutely.
Squad.
Always gotta throw respect where respect's due when it comes to first responders and military, all that good stuff.
Absolutely.
I worked with them for 3 years, and I moved on to another location and different population, but it was by far, as far as a psychotherapist, my at least like the most fulfilling and rewarding work to do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you come across people like Chuck that are stubborn. It's fun to squeeze through the cracks.
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about getting inside Chuck's head.
No.
Yeah. Too many bad things.
It's just chaos.
Oh.
I got a question. I do have a question for you, Bill. Going back to the breeding aspect, I have 2 questions. One for myself. What's the longest you've had a female go without taking a meal after laying a clutch?
The only time that has happened to me, the female ultimately did not do well.
Okay.
It's only happened really one time that I can think of, maybe twice, where I've lost females after they've laid a clutch of eggs. And they went, they never took a meal after they laid, and then they spiraled, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly after that.
Mm-hmm.
But almost always after, having a good clutch and everything going, quote unquote, normally, they always take a meal almost right away.
How long do you try to wait?
I don't wait very long. I'll give them maybe 2 weeks, and then they're getting a small meal.
Okay. Yeah, I'm at 19 days and I've had 3 refusals, but now she's striking, but it seems very defensive.
Yeah. Everything went well. I mean, she, with the eggs and everything, she laid them, she coiled them, you took them.
Yep. And she's coiled very tightly on the perch right now too. That's what Patrick asked me, is she coiled tightly? And she is, and she keeps readjusting. It just looks like defensive strikes. And every now and then you see, I think it's just muscle memory that she's doing like a half-ass wrap, and then, just biting and letting go and spinning. So
you cleaned her up, gave her a good bath afterwards, got all the scent off her and all that.
I did. I think I'm going to do it again, though, if this, we go beyond like 21, 24 days.
Let me ask you guys this. When it comes to soaking, getting the scent off, I got a process with my retics that I generally do. The first time that I soak them, and when I take out bedding and do a deep clean, I'm typically doing I'm just doing a straight up just water bath because I want them to hydrate. I notice with my females, they don't when they're tightly coiled and about to lay, they'll go 7-10 days without water. And so I do a normal bath, but about 3 days after, before they kick in and go into blue, I do I'll soak them for 10-15 minutes, and then I add a little drop of Dawn dish soap, and I get some suds in there, not a bunch, but just enough to see a little bit after they're in that bath and hydrated. And that's when I start to see them active again, and they're no longer up where they laid and coiled. Anybody in the chondro world do that? The Dawn dish soap?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I think it's pretty well utilized technique. Typically here, we take it even a step farther. We will take them immediately off the eggs, put them in really not just a drop. I mean, we give them a soapy bath.
Okay.
Soak them in a soapy, bath for maybe 10 minutes while we're, messing with the eggs, candling the eggs, marking them. And then we'll dry that animal off. We'll rinse it. And then I'll soak her overnight, right off the eggs in a very shallow bath, soak her overnight in clean water, and let her hydrate, and then the next morning get up and then put her back into a clean cage. So that's my technique.
Yeah, I haven't used dish soap, and I only soaked her for a few hours in regular water.
Yeah, for me, I notice the dish soap is always what does the trick, because like I said, I do a first soak in just water, let them hydrate, I put them back in, I'll take them out again, and typically when I put them back in, I see them up where they did lay, even though I do a complete sanitation of their enclosure. It's typically after that Dawn dish soap, if it's needed, that that's when they kind of snap out of the maternal instinct, and I asked because it asked like if that's a thing in the chondro world, because again, my brain is still convinced that, maybe these snakes are more fragile, right? And again, right. So I worry about the idea of using Dawn dish soap on a green tree python, right?
I've flooded them with Dawn dish.
Okay, cool.
Soapy, just like you with your kid, you just shove them in there and you go underneath the water and there's nothing but bubbles, and you pull them back out and wipe them off and give them a little rinse, and then back into a clean, fresh soap for the night.
Okay, cool. Good to know. Yeah, I'm still scarred, man. It took me 10 years to get one, dude.
Yeah, I get it. You got your kid gloves on. Yeah, I get it.
Yep, Bill, I remember. Go for it, Chuck.
I have a question about egg boxes.
Okay.
Your egg boxes are like the original, more complete chondro egg boxes, if I'm not mistaken, directly from the Container Store, correct?
Yeah, just with a like an old rag on the bottom and a hole. Are you talking about my incubation box or my nest box?
No, your egg box, the boxes that you're incubating in.
Yeah, pretty much from the Container Store. I think I picked up some from Target one time, but yeah.
But it had to be a long time ago because I could not find your boxes. So my question is, how do you replace them? Like, do you have any plans of what to replace them with? Do you have any newer style ones that you're transitioning?
I think the only thing that's important in an egg box is that you get the lid that's recessed, so it can be completely sealed. Not the lid that clips over the top, because there can be airflow that comes there. But a box, if you can find a box where the lid is inwardly recessed,
like weather sealed.
Yes, like weather sealed, exactly. And I've seen some of those newer like cup boxes, Rubbermaid, whatever they are, and they they have that weather sealed.
That's what I use
around it.
Yeah,
so I think those would be great.
Because I'm using the Cambro with the soup lid, and I prop the it's like you could literally put water in there and throw it upside down and it wouldn't leak a drop.
Well, I think that's great.
But for anyone listening that is interested in having similar egg boxes as you, is there any modern in stock style that you found from any certain store that you could tell people where to go that we use the same ones as you?
I haven't looked, to be honest. I mean, the boxes that I've used for a decade, and there's no reason to replace them. They're as good today as they were 10 years ago. But I think they could be easily found. Like I said, if you just find a box that has that super well sealing top, that's really the most important thing. And then obviously, we put vent holes in it because there's a time in the incubation where they need ventilation, oxygen, and airflow, but it's not at the beginning. Right. You want that box tightly sealed.
So what is that process for you? You talk about so a point of opening up those holes. For me, I have mine that air. I have a hole in each opposing quarter, just one or two holes total. But it's like that for my other species. So for you, how long are you keeping them sealed, and when are you aspirating and letting them breathe?
Yeah, it's usually about halfway through the incubation period. So let's say it's 50 days. So, roughly into the third week, I'll start noticing a lot of condensation on the sides and the top. And that's when I'll start to open up those vent holes, get some ventilation, get some oxygen exchange in there. Before that, it's usually once a week. I'll just open the lid for a quick air exchange, and then the lid goes right back down. But I think that high humidity is more important than oxygenation or airflow in the beginning of the incubation process.
Yeah.
It's funny how different all the incubation methods are, because I'm running 4 open holes from the beginning and day 19, and they're super plump.
A lot of it depends on, what's the humidity in your incubator. Maybe your incubator has a high ambient humidity level. My incubator runs about 60% humidity. And
I have a water pan, so I'm cheating.
I have water. One of my incubators has a water pan in it too. But I found that if I don't do that, if I don't make it completely sealed up the first, halfway through, then my eggs will dry out.
Interesting.
Wow.
What are you putting them on top of? What substrate medium?
I just water.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's so weird.
Yeah.
Sitting on top of water and sealed, and even if there's a couple, like one air hole, it's still so crazy that they can see. And again, this is where, part of it drives me crazy, interviewing all of you guys that are amazing at doing what you do with breeding chondros. And I can't get any one of you two to agree on an incubation method.
I'm using Orbeez. Using Orbeez.
It drives me crazy, man.
Well, I tell people all the time, I bred 100 or hundreds of ball python clutches in that incubator before I hatched my first green tree clutch in there. So I knew that incubator and I knew my boxes inside out. I knew I had failures of incubation, but I had most of my failures with ball python eggs and not green tree eggs.
That's unheard of. Oh man.
I feel like with some people though, that practice could be their downfall because they treat green tree python eggs exactly like ball python eggs, and they're set in their ways, kind of. You know what I mean?
Listen, I incubate ball python eggs and green tree python eggs and carpet python eggs and
the same damn incubator
and blood python eggs, all right next to each other, all in the same box, all at the same temperature.
Here's what Bill does. He puts any species in there. He's like,
right.
I'll see you in 49 days.
Yeah.
Right.
Turn the lights out.
Bless you, child.
Oh man. It's I'm trying my best to just keep an open mind and it not be such a scientific thing. I do know I need to get a new egg box for the chondros because I know the ones that I do use, they're weather sealed, but they have 4 latches. And whenever there's condensation on the top of my retic eggs and I take them out to, I'll if I dry out the top of the lid, just unlatching those 4 latches, waterfall. And again, it doesn't matter with retic eggs. You could literally take a hose on retic eggs, do that, and then wipe them with a paper towel and they're fine.
Wow.
Yeah. They're
chondro eggs.
No, retic eggs are probably some of the most bulletproof eggs out in existence. And I'm wondering if that just has to do with the size of the egg and the embryo size versus, I saw chondro eggs at your place for the first time back in February, whenever the first Dallas was this year.
Yeah.
And I looked at them and I was like, no, those aren't like, those aren't
slugs.
Those are crested gecko eggs. Like those are not chondro eggs. Yeah, so I think that's why. But yeah, I'm going to have to find another box that's going to be easier to open up that lid because even if there's just a tiny little bit of condensation that drips on that egg, I'm going to panic.
Yeah. I think you're warranted, and yeah, I agree. You need to find a different lid.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing I was thinking is with that weather sealed tightness, I could set the lid on top and not latch it, and it's still going to be pretty well sealed off. And that's one thing I was thinking.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think that's a good point for sure.
But Chuck, I want to just throw it up to you if you have any other breeding or incubation questions, because I kind of after that I want to jump into the Reptile Talks over at Anaheim that you did. Was it earlier this year?
Yeah, it was April.
Yeah,
sure.
So Chuck, you got any other questions before we jump into that?
No, I had one about a female he just posted though. I want to know.
Is it on his Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay, let me.
Female I just posted.
Let me share this. Hold on.
The one with absolutely no melanism in it.
Oh, well, I produced that snake, but I don't own that snake.
I was going to say that doesn't belong in your collection. Let's figure something out.
I produced that snake, but you know who? Well, it was. I think it was on my story, so it probably won't be on my.
It's beautiful. Oh my God, it was unbelievable.
There it is. Yeah.
Oh man, yep. Alex, I saw that. Alex posted that one earlier.
Guess who owns it?
That's Alex's animal?
Yeah. He pulled that from my room 2 years ago.
Oh man, I will say I got to look at that one more time.
I might actually have an opportunity at it.
Absolutely. Bring a big bag when you come.
You look at that. You look at that animal.
You see my wife. I got a lot of ammunition.
Yeah, you look at that animal and then you look at this animal and you're like, Bill didn't produce the other animal.
Yeah,
like there's zero melanism in that animal, and then you look at something like this.
Well, the dam to that clutch, the sire was Freight Train, who is a prolific melanistic breeder. But the dam to that animal is Mountain Drew, who doesn't have a speck of black on her. Mountain Drew is produced by Drew Russell, and she's a beautiful green animal with beautiful yellow diamonds, has some yellow undertones to her. But she looks a lot like the dam to that clutch. Alex's animal does.
Okay.
And I've got some siblings of that animal that are so dark. I'll show them to you on the party. You wouldn't believe that they were siblings.
Oh, I believe it. Because I even looking at the clutch that I got from you this year, there's my animal, and then I pulled up a sibling of that one like this. But there's animals from that clutch that it's crazy the wide range of phenotypic expression just in that first clutch in 2023 that you produced.
One of my favorite stories is an animal. If you'll go back to kind of the main page, go down a little bit, scroll down just a little bit, Lucas. That animal right there on the left of me, right there.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
So that animal is an animal that I produced, and I got back earlier this year to do a breeding project with. This was the very last Neo picked of a 16 Neo clutch from Jaeger Biscuit. And a guy messaged me. This is his only green tree. He goes, "Hey, I've always wanted to get a green tree. Do you have anything?" I said, "I've got one animal left. This is it." I can't remember what the Bill's number was. And
2212.
2212. Probably one of the lightest animals in the clutch. Looked very non-specific. I go, "This is it. This is the last one I got." He goes, "Okay, I'll take it." And he starts sending me pictures of this thing when it's 2 years old. And I'm like, "Holy shit, that looks more like the sickness than any animal that I've ever seen in this room." So I got him back, and I'm going to probably won't breed this fall, but I'm going to give him a shot. But that just goes to show you, right?
Right.
The last pick.
It's that shade of green that reminds me of the sickness.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I was going to tease about this earlier. I was going to tease about this earlier, but what are the things, actually the only thing that you can ask most chondro breeders, right? And you can say like, "Hey, like, based off of your experience with doing this pairing, a repeat pairing, like, like, give me some feedback on what I'm looking at with babies. What should I look out for?" And every breeder is going to give you some essence of like, even Patrick looked at the baby I got from you and he's like, "Hey, I like this about it. I like this about it." You ask Bill that question and Bill every damn time is going to say, "You never know." He's freaking Forrest Gump, man. Life's like a box of chocolate. Like it's every damn time. And I'm like, "Damn it, Bill."
Because if I tell you, I'll just be lying because I don't know. And I've had this conversation with John Irby. He used to track his numbers. Like, he would pull out animals from a clutch, and number one would be the animal that he thought would have the most promise. And then he'd go, it'd be 20.01, 20.02. And number one was like his number one pick of what he thought had the most potential. Myself, on the other hand, I just pick them out. It's whichever one I can get to closest without disrupting the rest of them. And I literally just pick them out. It doesn't matter if it's red, yellow, I pick them out. But John used to pick his out in a specific order. And he followed these animals, and he had absolutely no clue. It made no difference on what he thought the potential of the Neo, and these are high blue potential offspring, and what the ultimate animal turned out to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Zero correlation between his pick.
Yeah. I would have never imagined that the animal I got from you would have been as melanistic as it is right now, because it was more on like the brick red side than it was on the dark side.
You think you'd have that animal if I had any inkling that it was going to do that?
Exactly. Right. And that's one thing that I appreciate. Like, so I'm over here in my mind thinking like, do I hold a clutch back for a year and I see everything as a new breeder, and really, especially for me, that I want to really focus on yellow diamonds that stay through adulthood. Right. But then I think back on like what you're doing and your willingness to sell babies that look like rock stars, and it's got to feel amazing to put, and I'm sure at times it might feel like a dagger to the heart, but like to see other people have animals from you that are just turning out like 2212, right?
Yeah. For me, it's a win-win situation. I mean,
Right.
I get the pleasure of putting special animals in people's hands, and it's almost kind of like winning a lottery, right? Like
Right.
everybody gets a Neo, and some of them turn out green and some of them turn out black, but most of them will turn out somewhere with a little bit in between. And, I just have so much of that Jaeger sickness stuff in my collection already that I would encourage you to hold every animal back, Lucas, or the vast majority of your animals back from your first
I plan to.
couple clutches, whatever. But there comes
you're going to send like 2 or 3 here.
I did reiterate and say most of them, not all of them. But that's what I did initially starting out.
Yeah. So. And I think that, and again, I have a marketing background, and at the end of the day, what you're doing as well, it's free marketing. When you put animals like that into people's hands and they're posting it, like you don't have to do any work, man.
No, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's free marketing. And I think sometimes people have this idea that breeders, like, you're talking about, know what the animal's going to do. And they're hoarders. They always hold back the good stuff.
Like Ryan. Right. Well, no, Ryan. No, I misspoke. I jumped the gun. Ryan holds everything back.
Yeah. And Marshall does too.
My last clutch was called the Ryan Young clutch.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you hold everything back?
Yeah. Ryan got a pair of Saputra from me, Soleil retics, and we went back and forth for about a month of me trying to convince him to get rid of a chondro for we did a trade. I ended up getting awesome animals from him, not chondros, but yeah, that was one of those things, back and forth for a month. I just kept checking, and I'm like, you sure? Like, there's not a single chondro in your collection. Not one right now from your Maniquari clutch. He's like, not yet. And I'm like, damn it, Ryan.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I enjoy playing the game, kind of, and I like to see other people play the game where they get these animals, and I never overpromise. I always undersell. I always underpromise, and that's probably what I'm doing when you ask me questions like, "What's it going to turn out?" I could never look somebody in the face and say, "Oh, I really think this one's going to have a lot of black."
This one looks promising, right? Exactly.
Yeah, this one, I really think this one's going to have a lot of black.
And I guess when you're in the ballpark of like working with the bloodline that you do, and the price of your animals, the last thing that you want to feel responsible for is someone spending a few $1,000s on you and ending up with a mostly green snake.
Damn right.
And holding that against you, because it's not on you, but
it's not, absolutely, it's not on me at all. But I don't want to overpromise. It's the last thing I want to do. I want to underpromise, and
right.
Then and it's not, it's not like the animal that you got was 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000, but it's probably, the amount of black that your animal has is probably, on the higher end scale than, its clutch mates. I would bet.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I would even say, like, even some of the higher end clutches that you even had that season. I follow all of your babies. I find everyone who buys one of yours, and I'm always looking at your stuff because, again, I love the yellow triangles and everything. But I mean, I would even say that mine has a decent amount, if not more, black than some of the other clutches that were higher chances of melanism. So again, it just goes to show that you really are playing the lotto.
Yeah, you are, for sure. And yeah, I mean, I think bottom line is I would never overpromise. I want to do the opposite. Yeah. So I think that's why I'm vague when people ask me questions about its potential.
Yeah. I do have one last question. And I'm just trying to pull up the picture, but it's a video, but let me see if I can let me go ahead and just share the screen and we'll talk about it. How is this snake doing?
Yeah, that snake's doing freaking awesome. Alex just sent me a picture of it that I haven't. That's the least pattern Neo I've ever produced, and I think it's the least pattern Neo I've ever seen. It literally had no.
I saw that one at your house last September.
Bring it back up. Bring it back up.
I'm trying to think.
Is it that one?
Yes, it's that one.
Oh, geez. Is that on Alex's page?
That's how it looks now. That picture was literally just yesterday or the day before.
No, this is directly from the mayor's chambers. Alex infiltrated and sent me a picture today.
Put it back up again.
Let me see.
I got security clearance. I know a guy that works for the mayor.
Oh man.
So it still doesn't really have any. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it.
It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It almost looks like it's like it doesn't have any structure to it. It almost looks calico.
Yeah, you would think like calico or mosaic.
Right, exactly. Because it has zero structure. It's just pixelated with different colors.
It's complete pixelation at this point. Obviously, it'll continue to change.
Right.
But it's the most unique Neo I've ever produced.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
It's pretty fun. Yeah.
Bill, let's wrap up on your reptile talks that you did at Anaheim. If you don't mind, I kind of want you to just have the floor here. Talk a little bit about like the process and what you presented on, and just the presentation in and of itself. I'd rather, you did the presentation as opposed to me just interrupting like I normally do on my stupid podcast. I kind of just want to give you the floor to talk about the presentation.
Yeah, so the Reptile Talks was, I think it was kind of a reborn thing that had happened before in Southern California. Maybe it wasn't called the Reptile Talks, but it was kind of reinvigorated by three guys. Jay Summer is the person that contacted me, but Rami that runs the Super Show was also involved. And then another guy named Armin were the three guys that put this event together. And it was 100% for the benefit of USARK. Every single dollar that didn't go into, the venue and providing rooms for the presenters and stuff like that went to USARK. There was a nice USARK auction on Saturday night of the event. This was a weekend event, Saturday and Sunday. It raised like $40,000, just the auction for USARK. So it was had a great cause behind it. And so there were talks Saturday and Sunday. There were probably about 6, 7, 8 talks each day, all going an hour, roughly 30 minutes to an hour. And I was the second person to present on Saturday, which was the first day. The initial presenter was Scott Stahl, who is probably the most preeminent reptile vet in the world.
Yeah.
I think that's an understatement. He literally wrote the book about medicine and science and snakes. So he presented first on Saturday. I presented second. It was very, very broad spectrum. I mean, there were presenters that talked about everything over the course of 2 days. Some of it very niche, some of it more, widespread. Socrates presented on Sunday on chondros, and he went into emeralds a little bit as well. But my talk basically was very focused as a beginner talk. I mean, I tried to cover as much stuff as I could, starting with my weakness, which is locality stuff, geography, taxonomy. But I did present it. I got Ryan Young's stamp of approval. I stumbled through some of the, Uteranus and, terms like that, but I got through that, and then did a pretty basic overlying talk on husbandry. I went into, I think one of the more interesting things that I got a lot of looks was, when I told people that genetics in green tree pythons was, phenotype was polygenic, right? But babies are Mendelian, like red versus yellow. And
It's weird.
Put the big graph up there, that showed red as being dominant, yellow being recessive, and what happened when you, would breed a red how you could get yellows from 2 red animals, and you could never get a red neo from 2 yellows. That got a lot of like head shaking and like, damn.
I mean, when you think about that, it is very weird for something of neo color to be Mendelian, but ultimate adult color is completely phenotypic.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty mind blowing now that I'm sitting here and digesting that.
Yeah. So just stuff like that. I did go into designers, of course. I presented the designers as high yellow, high blue, high black, and then just freaks like calico and mosaic. Went into breeding, did some introductory breeding, cycling techniques, discussed establishing babies a little bit. So just really tried to hit as many things as I could, as you would like, try to present to somebody that knew nothing about green tree pythons.
Right. You kind of presented like a Chondro book, so to say.
Yeah. I tried to, a very abbreviated book. Yeah.
And I'm curious, for you doing that and getting that experience, the people that were there and able to watch the presentation, what was the feedback like?
I got a lot of solid feedback, to be honest. Yeah. To be honest, I thought, I think we talked a little bit before we started taping. I put a lot of time into that presentation. I am not foreign to giving presentations. Lucas, growing up in the medical field, I had to do a lot of presentations as a medical student, as a resident, as an intern. That was one of the, and as a researcher, which I was in my medical career. We had to give talks all the time, but it had been a long time. And I'd certainly never given a 45-minute talk on green tree pythons.
Right.
So, I had to reach back into old days, reach deep, in some of the past years of presenting. But ultimately it was fun. I was super nervous about it, which seemed silly now, but the presentation went well. It was well received, and I think it will be available. My understanding is they're going to be releasing the individual talks pretty soon on YouTube. And obviously when that becomes available and I have access to it, I'll make the link available.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to watch that. And that was the first thing that I thought in my mind. I was like, Bill is giving a talk on something he's passionate about. And I know from his medical experience, this is might have been something he hasn't done in a while, but I know he knows how to present. There's no way he doesn't. Yeah. So I was always hopeful that they would be made available. So I'm going to really look forward to that. Any bit of information about chondros. I mean, again, I'm doing a podcast on them and I still listen to every podcast that's out there on them. And
me too.
Yeah, exactly. But being done in a presentation fashion from a professional, it's a different flavor that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Well, I hope I hope the recording comes out well.
Right.
I was the second presenter in the first morning, which was the first 4 presenters. They were having some microphone issues. So I didn't have a live mic. So I had to speak very loudly. My understanding is that the audience, everybody could hear what I was saying. So I'm assuming that the broadcast, the recording picked up on it as well.
Right. Might not be the best audio, but I mean, we can hear you.
I think it'll be understandable.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. And I think that nervousness that you mentioned, I think that just speaks volumes to the passion that you have about this. Like, I mean, the idea of like being nervous or messing up a presentation about something that's really important to you, I think that says a lot.
Well, it was important to me, but, I knew I was going to be presenting to somebody that nobody really knew who I was, so to speak, and they didn't know anything about green trees, right? So if you want to get them on board, if you want them to be engaged and passionate about what you're passionate about, it has to be a pretty good talk, right? Like I felt, I mean, maybe that's just internal pressure, but I wanted the presentation to come across as being interesting. I didn't want people falling asleep during it.
Yeah.
Right.
No, and to just touch on that and your moral character, I want to thank you. I don't know if you remember the first time we ever talked. I think I didn't even have a green tree yet. And I messaged you and I called you and I was like, hey, can you help me out with this really stupid problem? And it was specifically about probe placement with the heat panels. And I
Okay.
couldn't figure out why the probe being in between the perch and the panel had to be I think it was a lower temperature than what I was actually achieving at the perch height. And it didn't just make sense because heat rises. And I just couldn't get it. And you actually talked to me on the phone for maybe 30 minutes or whatever. And then you started sending me pictures of your probe placement. I was like, this guy's fucking great. Like I don't even have a green tree python yet. Like, and he's like sending me pictures of his facility. And I was like freaking like starstruck. It was cool.
Well,
So.
Thanks for the kind words. I mean, that's what the community is about, though, dude. That's what I was doing. Those are the messages that I was messaging Marshall Mendez, Buddy Buscemi, Christian Stewart, Greg Maxwell. I was messaging all those guys those same questions, man, just a decade earlier.
Right. Where I come from, and being in a supervisory role, and I really feel that in my profession, even in the reptile world, when you've paid your dues and you understand things, my values align that there's almost an obligation to spread the information to the generation below you.
Yeah.
And I know not everyone agrees, but it's one of those things where, you do come across some people that have all like so much information and experience and knowledge, and they just, they don't reply, or they don't like to provide the 2 cents. And I'm not saying that in a judgy way, because they might have their own stuff going on, but, I guess just where my value lies is from that nature, is you help the new generation to come up, so that each generation gets better and better, so that more and more people are attracted to, and that's how the community grows. I mean, you ask people, like, a lot of people say, oh, I'm in it for the animals. It's like, yeah, sure, but you'd be nowhere without the community. It's just as much about the people than it is about the animals.
Yeah.
I agree. I will say one thing, though, because I'm certainly not perfect, Chuck, in my responses. Like, I'm glad I responded. I'm glad, we had that conversation, and I try to get that done to everybody that contacts me, but I'm not 100% by any means. And some people fall through the cracks. I mean, it's not unusual for me to get 10 messages a day, either on my phone,
right,
on Messenger, on Instagram. People that, to be honest, I don't know who they are. And sometimes there are questions I can't help them with. A lot of times I get questions about veterinary medicine and imports, an imported animal that's not doing well. And so I can't help them. I really cannot help them with stuff. And other times it's just people slip through the crack. Other times it's questions that are just so I can't even wrap my mind about where they're coming across the questions, and they go unanswered. But having said that, it happens. But I really, really do try to do my very best to answer questions and spread knowledge, in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the inspiration I have to pass the torch, I guess, or at least pay it forward to the people that ask me questions is, like I said, you reaching out and just giving me the time of day, and Sock and Pat and Ryan Young and Forrest helped me out in the beginning. And I just really appreciate everything that everybody helped me out with when I was, setting up my tubs, and now I'm on my 3rd clutch. And I mean, perfect example, Lucas, we had Ryan Clary on with, not just basically not having an incubator, and his female abandoned the eggs and wouldn't maternal them. And we got to figure it out. And I called him. I said, we're going to weather this storm together. And he hatched him out of a cooler. And I've had other people reach out to me and just ask me questions that I now consider elementary, but to them, it's a huge I always tell people, you can ask me the dumbest questions in the world, because if you kill a clutch because you didn't ask a question to me, I'm gonna be pissed. Like, you gotta just ask dumb questions. Don't lose a clutch because of some silly thing that you don't want to ask somebody.
Right.
There's all sorts of stories like that through the community throughout the years. I mean, hell, Gary one time drove 3 hours, I think, and picked up a person's clutch for them and brought him back to his house and incubated him because the person had no idea. They were cohabbing a pair of green trees that they'd had, and all of a sudden, this female's on eggs. The person was completely clueless, had no incubator. Just somebody help, and so there's lots of stories about shit like that throughout the community.
It's neat to pass it along and then see the people that you helped then asking you questions because they're helping somebody, and it's like, damn, this is pretty cool, because this just trickled down from Bill and Pat and then to me, and I'm like, I'm a nobody, like I'm a rookie, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but people are asking me questions.
Hell yeah.
But they're questions I actually may have an answer to or a bit of experience, and then you're like, right, is this what it feels like? This is pretty cool, I guess, but I don't know shit. Like, I'm still asking fucking Bill and Pat questions.
But if you ask people like Patrick and all those, and you ask me, I still remember asking people, and getting help from people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing it. Bill, same sentiment with the idea. I get 10 to 12 messages a day about retics, but I'm over here still asking people questions myself and trying to figure some things out. And I definitely think there's like a generational thing, right? I definitely would recommend that if you're brand new, you ask the people that are 3-4 years ahead of you. And then those people 3-4 years ahead of you are asking people 5-6 years ahead of you. Right. It's kind of like it can work. Right.
I think that's a great idea, a great way to do things. And that way, maybe you don't overwhelm a limited number of people, spread the love a little bit, so to speak.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I always do my absolute best to go to the people I bought the animals from when I have a question on that animal. Like, I really don't like the idea of, I got 2 Beox from Patrick. I'm not going to message Bill and ask Bill about a problem that I have with an animal that the breeder is who I invested in. I'm going to ask that breeder the question on that animal. And I try to apply that as much as I can.
Well, I think that's an excellent point. And, when I get messages, the first thing, I ask is, who'd you get the animal from?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Have you spoken to the breeder? And most of the time they're, I got it in an expo or it's.
Yeah.
I just had a customer that had an issue with an animal I sent them, and he said, it looks backed up. And looking at it, I knew exactly what was wrong. I was like, squeeze a cloaca a little bit. It was a hard mass, basically, right at the cloaca. And I was like, Bill, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but I've tried something that people might think is a little wild or off the charts, but I just use common sense. And I told my customer, I was like, you got to give it an enema. He's like, what? I said, soak it, see if it goes. It soaked it probably 2-3 times. It wouldn't pass this. It was a hard urate. I said, it's going to be a hard urate that's basically like a pebble. And after you get it out, you squeeze it, it turns into like Caribbean sand. I was like, it's a poor water quality, most likely. So I have him get a pipette and squirt, 83-degree water up into the animal.
Yeah.
And it passed it within a matter of minutes. And this is weeks. He was like trying to soak it and stuff like that. And finally, I just interjected. I'm like, all right, let's do this. Let's give it an enema, whatever. But I don't know of anyone doing that, like squirting water up their butts. And I just use theory because my vet that I have to retain on my pet store license, he doesn't come here. I have to do everything remotely. And he told me, yeah, you could just hydrate your animals like that. And I thought about it. If it doesn't poop, then all you're doing is hydrating it. And I think that dried hard mass kind of like adheres to the inner lining of like the GI system and like forms like a suction. And it's like dry. And if you could shoot water past it, kind of lubricates it and breaks it up, and they pass it every time. So,
yeah, no doubt about it. You may just find people that would not be willing to do that, especially if they're relatively new, keeper, or they've never done it before. People are hesitant.
Right. Lucas, I'll do it to a retic all day. I'm a little nervous to do it to a chondro.
Yeah. But I think if you're right, if you have somebody that's willing to just, listen and take advice and take instruction and do it, I mean, I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it would have passed it. Like, it would have been fine with soaking and stuff like that and proper hydration and, change your water quality to like an RO or distilled water. But I told him, are you comfortable doing this? Like, I think it'll pass it right away to just kind of ease your mind and let you sleep at night a little bit. And it worked within a matter of minutes. It's pretty neat.
And it is a good way to hydrate an animal.
Yeah. Bill, want to thank you for coming on, man. I do have one quick wrap-up question, if you so care to share, even though I know that it's a long ways out. But I guess I'm always looking forward to the next season as a consumer. What's your most anticipated pairing you're doing next season?
It's probably going to be a repeat pairing between Freight Train and Outbreak.
Awesome. Yeah,
she's really recovered well this year. She produced a relatively small clutch, or ended up with a small clutch. I ended up with, I think, 8 animals from her. I think she laid 14 eggs, but I got 8 animals out of the egg and established. But, and obviously they're still young. They're less than 6 months old now, but they look so good. These babies look. Steven Saltzman, I literally just met him in Waco 3 or 4 days ago, and we did a swap. And little swap, yeah. He ended up with one of them, but every single one of the babies, it is my, again, we talked about it, probably doesn't mean shit. They'll probably all be green, but they're the most homogeneous, dark clutch of Neos by far I've ever produced.
Okay.
So,
and I mean, that goes just to, Steven's clutch too, man.
Yeah.
That clutch was insane.
Yeah, it was incredible. And I have Outbreak's sister, who was not ready to be bred at 4, like Outbreak was, but she's 5 now, and I'm going to breed Freight Train to her as well.
Awesome. So
those will probably be the 2 that I'm most excited about.
Awesome. Looking forward to that.
Me too. I'll show you all of that stuff in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward every second half of the year. The second show since I've been going to your place is it's a highlight at the end of the year that I look forward to.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Bill, man, like I said, thanks again. Chuck, you got anything before we kick him out?
I have one wrap-up question. It might extend it another 10 minutes, but I'm just going to add this as a precursor. Is you recently gotten pretty diverse with your collection, getting animals from a lot of different really good breeders. Steven Saltzman, you got an animal from Mark.
Wait till you see that animal when you come.
You've gotten an animal,
I passed up on that clutch. I don't want to see it.
You've gotten an animal from John Irby. What is your end goal?
What are you doing, Bill?
When are you gonna quit? Are you going to quit? What do you have to make to be satisfied?
Yeah. I don't think it's like making a single project, because if you ask me that, I can't really. Now, maybe when it happens, I'll see it and I'll say I was wrong, but I can't imagine me producing an animal more phenotypically appealing to me than the sickness.
Right.
Like, to me, that animal was 99%. If I could change a few things, maybe a little bit more black in its head. But otherwise it's just the animal that I always wanted to produce. And I produced it in my second clutch ever. So it's just hard to say that doesn't motivate me. I just want to produce more that look like him.
You're still chasing it, I'm sure, man.
I still chase, of course, but I can't picture anything better. Really too much better for me. Maybe when I see it, I'll know it and I go, yep, I did it. Something better than sickness. But that's not what motivates me. To me, what motivates me is producing more that look like them. So that's my end goal.
Adding the blue flare in, adding the calico in. I feel like they all fit the general project, right?
Absolutely. Calico, blue line, and melanistic, I think all are going to work really nice together.
Yeah, I love it when you guys talk dirty.
It's exciting stuff. I've for as long as I've been following your stuff, Bill, it seems like you've worked a lot with your stuff, and I will agree with Chuck. Over the last couple of years, I've seen you bring some outside blood coming in. I'm like, what's this guy up to?
Yeah.
I'm keeping an eye on what Bill's got his eye on. I'm like, what's he looking at?
What I'm looking at. No secrets. No behind the curtains, man.
I love it. I genuinely do. All right, Bill, we'll let you go. Thanks so much for coming on, man.
Man, it's been a complete pleasure, guys. Thank you for having me, and I can't wait to see both you knuckleheads at my place.
Yes,
sir. This will be releasing, I think, the Monday the Monday that we might be there, maybe the Monday before, but we'll see you soon, man.
Great. All right.
Take it easy.
Yep.
Chuck, it's always great talking with Bill, man.
Oh my God, I love him.
Yeah, I'm excited to go to his place. I literally feel like it's like I'm 10 years old again. I'm walking into Toys R Us, right? And then someone is just like, it's like going into Toys R Us with like $100 gift card.
Oh yeah.
And just getting to look at the animals and experience that. But yeah, for those of you guys that stay tuned till the end, I hope you freaking did, because I think that was a wealth of information. And yeah, we got another episode coming out in a couple weeks. Chuck, we got to start doing more of that basic 101 stuff. I was pretty surprised at a lot of the feedback that we got. And I kind of just want to share something. I was actually going to, at one point, share it while we had Bill on. But I will say, like you were mentioning the progressiveness about green tree pythons and more people wanting to get into them. We got 100 people on the Retic Lounge Patreon. I think about 82 of them or something like that, on who's counting, are paid. I've probably had 40 or so people reach out to me on my messages or on Instagram when I post my chondros, and they're all like, you got me interested. You got me interested. And so I think Bill's done a great job with the ball python world of bringing people in, and I'm hoping to steal some retic hearts to get them over to the chondro side. And I think that really what's the biggest barrier is this idea that they're hard to keep. And I tell people all the time, if you got 3 retics, man, chondros are going to be a walk in the park.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyways, Chuck, we'll have another episode in a couple weeks.
I'm going to talk like it's the day we're releasing it. You're listening to this right now. In less than a week, you're going to be drinking with us at Bill's house partying.
Yep. Yeah. I'm excited, man.
I'm super excited. I get to bring my wife this time. I was there.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, dude. I'm so excited. My wife's a good time. I love hanging out with her, and we're
I get to meet your backbone.
Yeah. Oh, dude, she's definitely the better looking one. But yeah, I can't wait. I want to bring my wife there, and I just love spending time with her. Even just getting on a plane, sitting next to her for a few hours. We don't get much time together because of kids, so awesome, I really enjoy spending time with her. I can't friggin' wait to bring her to Texas, have a good time.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. Again, thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you in a couple weeks.